So the next question is from Curtis. Says, backstory: I have a client that has no internet presence at all. I am planning on purchasing your local GMB Pro training for them to quickly drive leads and sales. The next step to my plan is building them an SEO site and continue to grow their reach through organic traffic. I have two questions in regards to the plan. Is Local GMB Pro a current and updated approach to GMB? Yes, it's foundational. Like, it's nothing's changed is regarding that, because it's, you know, it's again, it's like a fundamental, right? It's the fundamentals, how to manipulate Google My Business itself and how to get as much, you know, squeeze as much or build as much authority to that as possible. So yes, it is updated. It's still current. It's all of the methods that are taught in Local GMB Pro are still what I use today in my business, and I know my partners do as well. He says, and if my idea of fast tracking leads via GMB to the client and then building them a more organic SEO site the right path, or was there a better way to accomplish the goals? Yeah, I mean, you can absolutely do that. I've got several lead gen assets that I built that are just GMB assets. They don't, well, GMB and SEO Shield, but they don't have like a self-hosted website, for example. And, you know, that's the only thing that I would suggest. I mean, you can absolutely do it with just GMB assets, but I recommend that you still have an SEO Shield even before you go out and get, like, you know, a domain and build like a WordPress site or whatever for that client or, you know, lead buyer. I would suggest that you go with the GMB and then an SEO Shield, because that's foundational also, right? That's part of our process. And and you can get the G site as part of the SEO Shield, right? The Google site. That can be your primary website for that asset until you build, you know, an asset on a regular domain, if you so choose. But you might not even have to do that, because you can rank the G site organically as well. Like, that can be the website. So you don't have, I mean, there's certainly benefit, in my opinion, to having WordPress site, especially for a brand that you're going to be building for long term, but it's not absolutely necessary. I know Rob's got several lead gen assets that he builds out, or projects that he builds out. In fact, I think all of his projects are only on G sites. So
yes,
yeah, that's I as I was saying it, I remembered that he said that at POFU Live, that's all he uses is G sites. He doesn't use WordPress at all. So I would recommend Local GMB Pro, absolutely, but adding the SEO Shield to that without question. And then you'll have the G site, so you'll have that website that you can start to build out the organic presence as well. And then you can always decide at that point whether you even need a WordPress site. So, comments on that?
Yeah, the only thing that's changed in Local GMB Pro is what Google changed as far as the Google My Business listing is concerned. And whether you're going to go back and edit any of the vital information, the company name, phone number, address, all of that stuff that you should never change, because then you're setting yourself up for a suspension. Only the owner or you acting as the owner should be in there. In case it gets suspended, then the real owner can always talk to the Google rep and get it reinstated. But if you're in there and you're working through a GMB that's spam, it's hacked into the map, then you're taking a chance on getting it suspended. So you have to know what it is you're doing. If this client, it has a brick and mortar or an office that they work out of, get that GMB for that person. Make sure that you have fully completed the information as much as you can before you send out for that pin. And then once it comes back, don't ever touch the information again unless you have to. And the owner should be aware in case it gets suspended. That's the only thing. Everything else, the way we teach you to do the posts, the way you go after the keywords, the way you look at the insights, the information that Google gives you, the way that you approach getting images, it hasn't changed. The training is, as Bradley said, foundational. It's being applied right now to my clients. It's been applied since it started, and is going to continue to be applied, because once there's like a snowball effect. Google starts giving you 3-word terms and then 2-word terms, and then the 1-word terms come in, like you saw that with Mario's taxi when you were doing the case study, Bradley.
Yeah.
Right. He started appearing for just the keyword taxi. And so you knew that as soon as people were typing in taxi, looking for that tag, wherever it was, the airport or whatever, Mario was they were getting the impression. They were getting delivered Mario, wherever it was in the 3-pack that it was, they were getting it, clicking, and you could see it. Guys started to get calls. That's how it happens. This is how we do it. training is current, and I don't see any need to change it anytime soon.
Yeah.
Unless Google changes the foundational principles inside Google My Business, which I don't see them doing anytime soon.
No, especially because I've seen them, they're still adding to Google My Business. And just a quick note, I certainly agree with Marco that you should try to stay away from having to edit GMBs at all. But I've actually had some really good success recently. I just recently took on a new client and I had to do a whole bunch of edits to their GMB. And every time I go to click the save button after making edits, I always take just a second to pray to please don't suspend. Please don't suspend. And I've been really fortunate. I was able to go through and literally edit the whole damn GMB listing. It was like starting over from scratch. The phone number, the web address, everything. And fortunately, it didn't get suspended. And I've actually had several of my tree service lead gen assets that I've had to edit recently too. Fortunately, again, knock on wood, no, nothing's happened. But I just was reading in a Facebook thread, somebody that just went in and just did a simple change, and they just recently lost a valid GMB. So got to be careful, guys. I don't know what causes that. I know a few months ago, it was very, very Google had an itchy trigger finger. Like it was super easy. If you did anything, it would get suspended. I've seen a lot of that roll back, at least through the businesses that I'm working in. But I would absolutely caution you, if you don't have to make any edits at all, please don't. And like Marco said, if it's a spammed listing instead of a real bona fide listing that can be verified again if needed, I would recommend you don't make any changes if possible. But if it's a real business, a real bona fide business with a real location, then if you have to make changes, you got to make changes. Just be prepared in case it does get suspended. That you always got to be prepared for that. So
what I'm just saying is, if it's legit, prepare the owner.
Yes.
Look, dude, if for whatever reason, because it does happen even to legitimate businesses, if it does happen, then all we have to do is call Google, you as the owner with your paperwork, right? Because they're going to require paperwork, and we can recover it. So it's really no big deal. But if they don't know and they see their shit suspended, you're gonna have an angry client trying to get hold of you. So why not just avoid all that trouble and then let the client know, yes, it can happen, but since it's legit, then no problem. But if it isn't, and it's still a client, you got big problem. So avoid all that shit. Just do whatever you can, or as much as you can, before you send out for that pin, and then try to never touch it again unless, like Bradley said, you have to. If you have to, then what else can you do except go and pray to whatever God you believe in and hope that it doesn't get suspended. That's all you can do.